Welcome to the Lawyerist Podcast, a series of discussions with entrepreneurs and innovators about building a successful law practice in today's challenging and constantly changing legal market. Lawyerist supports attorneys building client-centered and future-oriented small law firms through community, content, and coaching, both online and through the Lawyerist Lab and Accelerator. And now, here are the co-authors of the Small Firm Roadmap and your podcast hosts.
Hi, I'm Sam Glover.
And I'm Laura Briggs, and this is episode 275 of the Lawyerist Podcast, part of the Legal Talk Network. Today, we're talking with Stephanie Everett about why you need a business advisory council and how to create one.
Today's podcast is brought to you by First Place Legal, Back Office Betties, Text Expander, and LawPay. We wouldn't be able to do the show without their support, so stay tuned. We'll tell you more about them later on.
Awesome. Today, I wanted to chat about something that comes up every so often in our Insider Facebook group, but we're all guilty of it and you see it all over the internet. And that's when we try to crowdsource our decisions when we're looking for something or someone new to hire and kind of the dangers of doing that without context.
This is when somebody posts in the Facebook group, hey, what do y'all think about this software? Or should I do this in my practice? Like, should I hire this person? What kind of a compensation arrangement should I use? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. And it's valid to ask the question for sure, because it's helpful to turn directly to the same audience as you when you're trying to solve a particular problem. But if you don't have any context for that or give some additional information, you're either going to get no context in the responses or highly individualized context. So unless you can share more about, hey, this is the software that I've tried and I didn't like it because X, Y, and Z, or what I'm really looking for has these features, ideally, you're not going to get great responses from people. And so you'll end up just back in this same loop where you're doing more research or going down the rabbit hole and someone else told you they hated a software. Well, it might have been a really good fit for you, but you didn't give them enough information to help you.
I think I can analogize this to trying to get somebody else's advice on a legal problem. I bet every single one of our listeners has walked into another lawyer's office to ask them for advice on the case that they're handling. And you usually start out by trying to respect the other person's time and saying something like, hey, when somebody does such and such, can I do this? Or what's the argument against that? And you usually get garbage responses, and and what ends up happening is you have to give them as much detail about your case as all of the material facts, all the material procedural posture, so that they can give you an actual informed opinion. And by then it's, then 45 minutes have gone past and you've eaten up the morning. But, but that's what it takes to get an informed opinion. The absolute same thing is true when it comes to business decisions like what technology to use or, what kinds of compensation arrangements to use with your associates or whatever, right? You need that additional context because there are a lot of material facts in there.
I think a really good rule of thumb is before you post these kinds of questions, either in our Facebook group or anywhere where you're soliciting advice, look at it from the perspective of if you saw that as a reader, would you be able to answer that question appropriately, or would you need more context for that? So you don't need to overwhelm people with, 15 paragraphs about what led you to this point and the different factors you're considering, but definitely give people some information because then they'll be able to respond to you knowing those additional details, and it will actually be helpful advice rather than just, well, I like this software and it's cheap, so go for it. That doesn't really help you if price wasn't the primary thing you were looking for.
I have another way to think about it too, which is ask a question that reflects the kind of response you hope to get.
Yeah.
Right? So is Zola good law practice management software? The answer you're likely to get to that is either yes or no.
Right.
Which probably isn't helpful to you. So ask a question that has as much substance to it as you need to add to it so that you can get more useful responses. I think that would be helpful too.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll be more grateful for it. And it's a good guideline to keep in mind when you're giving people advice or responding to these questions too. How can you contextualize what you're sharing in light of what they shared in the form of the way they asked the question?
Yeah, thanks. So now we've got a brief sponsored conversation with Jay Rathman from First Place Legal, and then my conversation with Stephanie about a different kind of business advice.
Hi, my name is Jay Rathman, and I am the founder, main strategist, and chief bottle washer for firstplacelegal.com.
Welcome back, Jay.
Thank you, sir.
So today you wanted to talk about Zoom meetings. You've been hearing some lawyers using it. I've got to imagine some are refusing. But why should lawyers be doing Zoom meetings, and how do they integrate this into their client acquisition, potential client process?
Yeah, so there are a lot of reasons why you should use it and a lot of ways to do so. And I have clients doing this now, and we're coming up with more interesting ways to use it every day. But let me just start by saying this. We are in a time now where a lot of stuff has been going digital. Everything's been going online, so to speak. And this pandemic has really accelerated that. It's kind of forced a lot of firms to go this route. Like, I have one firm in particular who last week did literally about 20 motions for early release because of the pandemic. And every one of those hearings was via Zoom meeting with the court. And so the courts are using it.
Right. Because if you want to do face-to-face right now, you don't have that option.
Correct.
You've got to use a video tool like Zoom.
Correct. But firms are getting judges on Zoom meetings. So from an element of security, there's no issues there.
Yeah.
But what I want to do is just take a step back for a quick second. The biggest issue facing law firms specifically about their challenges for online marketing isn't just generating the leads. That's not the hard part. They lose so many leads because they are horrible as an industry in responding to people. We are in a day where people just don't have patience. They will continue to call lawyer after lawyer after lawyer until somebody picks up the phone and acknowledges them.
Picking up the phone here is a euphemism for any way that you get where you have responded in a way that client, their search is done.
Yes. Stop them in their tracks and say, hey, we know you're trying to reach us. If it's an emergency, call this number. If we can reach out to you before the end of the day, otherwise, that would be fantastic. And you could do that with some marketing automation. We have some of those tools that are available. We're happy to make them available. But that's the biggest key is attorneys take forever to call people back. And by the time you call them back, if you even do, they've already engaged somebody else. So that's the first problem you have to solve, right?
Right.
So going back to Zoom, this is a really interesting way to make things convenient for your prospect as well, right? Not just using Zoom for hearings, but what about using it for consults? So many lawyers do a free consultation. They typically do it over the phone, or 30 minutes in person, whatever your policy is on that.
Right.
A 15 to 30-minute Zoom consultation is awesome. You can do it while you're eating your lunch. Your prospect doesn't have to leave their house. You can typically schedule that same day. I think if you were really progressive, we can sync it with the Google Calendar for you.
Yep.
And so you literally could block out an hour, in the morning and an hour in the afternoon for consults and let people literally book it online. They can say, hey, I want to have a consultation about this accident case, or, in the pandemic, I realized I'm ready to just, kill my husband. Before I do that, can we talk about a divorce, right? And so they literally can schedule that consult for tomorrow morning at 9:15, get right on your calendar and automate the entire process of setting up a Zoom meeting. So there's just so many ways to use it that it can help your practice become so efficient.
Yeah, I think that's right. And because you can meet face-to-face with people in the exact same time that it would take you to have a phone call, why not do that? And I think what's so compelling about this is anyone who's been holding out on learning these technologies, now there's no more excuse. Everyone with an internet-connected device has tried some form of video chat, probably Zoom or something like it, over the last few weeks. And so everybody's ready now. Everybody can do this.
And you can do these Zoom meetings on your phone or your tablet, iPad, tablet,
exactly,
smartphone, desktop, laptop. It's accessible and it looks great on all devices. So even clients that don't have a computer, if they've got a phone or a tablet, it's accessible to everybody. It's really an amazing technology.
So you've got two offers here that I'll let people know about. First of all, if people go to firstplacelegal.com, click on book offer, Jay will send you his book for free. His book is How to Tilt the Scales of Online Marketing in Your Favor. Hey, why not read it while you're stuck at home?
Sure. And it's the hard copy. I'll actually ship it to you. My expense. Don't worry about it.
That's fantastic. And the second is if for some reason, if you've made it this far into the pandemic and your self-isolation without actually doing video chat, Jay will be your guinea pig. You can go ahead and schedule a Zoom call with him for 30 minutes, and you can pick his brain on your marketing process, and in the process, learn and get comfortable using Zoom. So that's a pretty cool offer too.
Yep. I'll help them dial that in, no problem. And I'll audit their website, no charge.
Very cool. Go to firstplacelegal.com for Jay's phone number, for the contact info, for the book offer.
Have another Corona there, Sam.
There you go. I hope not.
Or maybe not enough.
Jay, thanks so much for being on the podcast again.
You got it, man. I look forward to speaking with everybody, and everybody stay safe and, return calls. That's important.
There you go.
Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, and I guide lawyers to healthier businesses.
Hi, Stephanie. Welcome back. It does feel a little bit weird to treat you like a traditional guest, since I believe you're above me on the org chart, so you're technically my boss. And we're just going to have a discussion here. You're not my interview subject in the normal way.
Yeah, but we'll have some fun.
So you've been floating an idea as we're thinking about the way we help lawyers be successful. This isn't an in the pandemic podcast. This is an in general podcast. And you've called it the Business Advisory Council. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so it occurs to me that a lot of businesses, especially startups, have the ability to gather up people. Well, I guess they first start with the premise that they don't know everything, right?
Right.
To back it up even further.
That does require a fair amount of self-awareness, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Gerber first introduced us to this idea in the E-Myth that people are technicians. Mm-hmm. And so they go into business because, Amy bakes the best pies in the world and everyone says, you should be a baker. These pies are amazing. I'd buy them from you. And so she goes and opens her bakery.
That's the actual example from the E-Myth, isn't it?
It's the actual example, but it's not the name. Her name was something different. I don't know where Amy came from.
But this resonates a lot with lawyers who, even I was griping on Twitter the other day about the fact that every legal tech company's message is, our product will help you get back to what you do best, practicing law, right? Lawyers are they're the classic technicians.
Right. I'm a great lawyer. Oh, you should open your own law practice because when I opened my own, and thinking back to when I left Big Law to launch my firm, it was crazy, but we had 2 different clients come to us within a week's time, which was just a weird timing thing. And they said, hey, you should open your own firm. We'll go with you. We'll support you,
Right.
And we were like, maybe there's something there. Like, it wasn't like we said, oh, we're great business people. We know how to run a business. Let's go start a business. It was like, oh, we're great lawyers. We know our stuff.
Right.
Let's start a law firm.
I can serve clients, therefore I should start a business.
Right.
Yeah.
And we see that a lot. And I think that's the primary reason lawyers do go out on their own. There's some other things in there. I want to be my own boss. I want to control my own hours. But for the most part, a lot of attorneys I know are not saying, I want to open my own business because I have something unique to offer to the marketplace and a chance to build this amazing business.
Mm-hmm. That's super fair. And as a result, we find ourselves floundering a bit. This is in some ways the story of Lawyerist, right? Like, I started my firm because I thought I was a smarter lawyer than all the lawyers I worked for, in typical Sam fashion. And then quickly realized that I didn't know jack about running a law firm, and started reaching out for help in everywhere I could get it. And that's kind of where most companies end up. But lawyers just seem to start with a lower level of self-awareness, like I did, like we all do.
Maybe also a sense of, as lawyers, we sort of think we should have it all figured out. So it's hard to admit that maybe we don't know things or that we need help in these different ways because we're just used to figuring things out on our own. Like, I'm a smart person.
Yeah, we're used to thinking of ourselves as the smartest people in the room, for better or for worse. So.
Yeah, and so this idea of Business Advisory Council it's been floating in my head because I noticed in other industries, businesses will form these advisory boards of experts for knowledge that they don't have themselves. Mm-hmm. And so I know how to build my widget. I know how to do the technician thing that I started my business to do, but maybe I'm not an expert marketing person or sales or finance or strategy or any of the other things that are all necessary to have a successful business.
Yeah. And in fact, Aaron and I are both advisors to different businesses for that reason.
Yeah, so that's awesome. So, I mean, what has your experience been in that role?
My experience in that role has been that mixed. It was really valuable to the company I advised initially. They had a gap in their knowledge and they needed to fill it, and I was able to help them fill it. I'm not trying to play cloak and dagger with this. It's case text. But then over time, they kind of got what they needed, and so they found their advisors less useful in the long term, and so they haven't been able to use us to the most advantage. But I think that'll change. When they have another need, they'll come and ask questions. And so I think that kind of reflects the fact that, every time you level up your knowledge, you may need your advisory counsel a little bit less for a short term, and then you're going to need them again later on. I think that's kind of the pattern of how these things tend to work, because then you get busy with all of the stuff that you have to do now that you understand your challenges better.
Yep.
And you work on them. And then you have new and bigger challenges, right? You've leveled up, and so now you have more complex things that you need, and you go back to your advisors and you ask more questions.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's right.
Or maybe you need different advisors at that point, I suppose.
Maybe, or maybe the advisor may have also started with pieces, right? Like sometimes when I work with attorneys, I know where they are. And so I give them a bite-sized chunk. And then I'm like, and then come back to me and then we'll do the next piece. Because I don't want to overwhelm them.
Yeah.
And so it depends on what the situation is and what the advisor can provide.
I think you've actually just given the difference between sort of an advisor and a coach, right? Like a coach will actually be taking sort of ownership of the process and trying to walk you through things, which is a little bit different than, I think, a more traditional advisor, which might just sort of give you the information, the advice, whatever, and then I'm done here.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe it depends on the advisor.
That's probably true.
But the idea that they had a gap and they needed some knowledge and you were able to help fill that in. And I think that's hits right on to the concept that I've been thinking about is you don't necessarily need to become a finance expert or a marketing expert, but you need to know enough. And that's certainly true.
You need access to one.
Yeah. And sometimes I caution lawyers. I see this a lot. I just met with this woman and she had gotten some crazy proposals, like expensive proposals for marketing work. I backed up to some real basic questions like, okay, what's the goal of your website? Like you've got these people building this thing, and we've talked about this before, and then they can't answer some kind of basic upfront strategy questions.
Yeah.
So before you go outsource or delegate this work to someone else, you need to have a base knowledge of it so that you know what it is you want and what you want the people to do. And then you can evaluate whether they're giving you the things you need. So that's where I think that advisor role really can come in too, is they give you the education and the knowledge you need for a strong footing so that you can then move that process forward.
So the reason you've been thinking about this term, this concept of the Business Advisory Council is because you've been with Lawyerist now for what, a year and a half?
2.5 years.
2.5 years, sorry.
It's okay.
My bad.
A long time.
Time is so weird right now that I have no idea. I feel like March was about 3 years long.
Yes.
So you've been thinking about this because you are the full owner of of Lawyerist's community and services, and you're overseeing everything. And now that you've had your feet in it, you've been building things, you've been thinking about okay, so what are we offering here, and how do we think about this ourselves? And so maybe it's useful to okay, here's what we're thinking about over here. Here's what Lawyerist actually has, and how we're trying to implement this. The base level is Insider. That is kind of the free thing that everybody can just sign up for. And our idea for that was sort of a peer support network, right?
Yeah, with Insider, you get access to some great tools on our website that are going to help you in all aspects of your business. So a sample budget, actually a collection script, if you didn't know that was there. I think that's a really hot topic. KPIs that you should be using for your business. It's just some real good basic tools are available.
Lots of free tools and resources, and then the Facebook community for those who want it.
Yeah, and then the Facebook community. And the discussion there tends to be around some good questions, but it's often centered on tools, I'll be honest. People...
Yeah, it's not as strategic as we see in Lab.
Right. Well, yeah, the conversation there just feels different. People are usually going with a really specific question and looking for a very specific answer.
But I will say that the reason for Insider is because we know lots of people get less helpful answers when they go to their local, solo and small firm section of their bar, for example, where you tend to just get a bunch of naysayers or but ethics responses. Whereas Insider is a group of people who, for the most part, are willing to engage with those ideas and encourage the good ones, not just say, that's a dumb idea. That's not how we do things. It's definitely a level up from what you might already have. But then there's more need. And so we created Lab as a way to get a more premium thing where you can actually get some customized coaching.
Yeah. And so I still get questions of what is Lab? I didn't know. I'm not really sure. And so I tell folks Lab is really 3 components: coaching, content, and community.
Mm-hmm.
And so coaching is really awesome. And even our coaching has evolved as the program has grown. And I'm excited to talk about.
Yeah. And this is where the Business Advisory Council really comes in.
Yeah. So now in the beginning, the primary coach was me, which I loved. And I feel like I know a fair amount about most things or a lot of things, in terms of your business. I'm like kind of the generalist in terms of your advisory council, right? And I'm on strategy and big picture and priorities is really where I love to work with folks. But now we have also really filled out our coaching team with a ton of great experts. And so we're working with Mary Ellen from Workwell Wherever, and she is coaching people on setting up their remote team and working with clients remotely, but also HR using virtual or remote team members and hiring them and how you engage them and manage them. So she just brings a lot of knowledge to the team. Laura, who people are probably starting to get to know from the podcast, I think she did the intro with you today.
Yep.
She has a ton of expertise that she brings to the table in terms of marketing knowledge and really going deep with folks right now in Lab on SEO and Facebook ads and building out successful funnels and how you make that work. She also has a ton of experience in hiring freelancers and contractors and remote workers as well. We are adding a financial coach. We are adding a technology coach. Like we're just bringing a whole powerhouse.
And the way we're doing that is like, as we're hiring for Lawyerist for our own needs, we're looking to hire people who can double as expertise that we can make available to Lab.
Yeah.
And I guess the way these used to work is like somebody posts a data security problem or, comes to one of your office hours or mastermind sessions and has a data security problem and you'll ping me and be like, hey, Sam, how should I be talking about this with them? And kind of the idea is just, why don't we just cut out that middle place and make the experts available directly so that essentially what you get is a business advisory council where if you have a technology question, you have a technology advisor to just talk to who isn't your consultant trying to sell you things, who's just somebody that you can get good advice from.
Exactly. And we've always done this at our LabCon events. We've always had our team there and we've had all these great experts in the room. I've had this idea mulling around in my head for a while, and it was like, oh, I want to be able to bring that same level and team of experts to the community all the time. And so I'm really excited with the new things that we're adding in terms of the coaching team, because it's just really we have just these powerhouse people, and it's super helpful to be able to go to someone who is an expert and who can really help you, and to your point, without trying to sell you anything. Because there's no objective there. Like marketing's a great example. It's really hard sometimes, because you're always curious, like, is this person just trying to sell me this thing, right? Like the insurance guy. I feel like I've bought a lot of insurance in my life.
Well, and it happens in subtle ways too. I'm obviously more technology oriented, but somebody was asking about, I've talked to an IT person and they're really advising me to get a server and that the cloud doesn't make sense for me. And it's like, that's the kind of thing where of course they are, because your IT consultant can't make any money off the cloud because there's no maintenance fees and things involved in it. And it's not that they're even trying to swindle you. It's just that like, that isn't where their head is. Their head isn't in the cloud. So that's cute.
Yeah. Or maybe they don't even have the ability to see the other side, right? Like,
yeah, they don't even know they're giving you bad advice potentially.
Right. Because they don't even know what else is out there. And we're able to help people, just really back it up, right? Like, let's look at it from a strategic point. What do you need and what makes sense for you?
And it's that strategic perspective that is missing from, even if you do have a peer group that can help you, sometimes the strategic perspective is missing. One of the things that I realized at some point in my practice is that every lawyer sees things from their own point of view. If you ask a criminal defense lawyer about, can I use Dropbox? Their perspective on it is going to be framed by the fact that the government is literally out to get their clients. Whereas if you're a family lawyer, it's not really the case. You have a different person who's out to get your clients. And so the way you think about those issues is different. And that's true for billing matters, for hiring matters, for everything. And so lawyers really have a myopic view, and you need somebody who can have that big picture view, who isn't just embedded in their own practice and sees everything from their own perspective.
Yeah. And so really these coaches, you should think of them as they're people who can be that sounding board. Sometimes they offer validation, and that's huge for people. People have been just showing up lately and they're like, am I crazy here? Is this right? And they just need to work through it.
Am I crazy here is a great start for that. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes just them explaining the issue to me, they're like, oh yeah, I already know. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. You're good. Like, yes, you're on the right track. Or, I mean, lately people have just been showing up because they want to interact with another human, which is also fun. But sometimes people do need to be challenged, or they need some feedback, or they need to kind of go out of their comfort zone. And so that is all lives in the coaching world, and which is really the first component of Lab. So that's what you get in coaching. You get it through group calls and one-on-one calls. And
what if you were trying to put this together on your own? I mean, I know there are absolutely private mastermind groups out there where people are doing this themselves. What should you look for in the group of people that you're trying to assemble?
Yeah. Number one, do they have the same frame of mind as you? Because somebody emailed me this week and he was wondering if he qualified for Lab. He's like, would I be able to join? Because it is by invite only. And so we talked about what I'm looking for is, are you in line with the way Lawyerist thinks about the practice of law right now? Because we have said now, we actually wrote a book and we put our stake out there that this is how we think lawyers should be thinking about their business. I use this example a lot, but I had someone once tell me, Stephanie, I know the practice of law is changing. I want to be the last person to change.
That's my favorite example.
I know. And I was like, that's awesome. You're not going to like,
you're not
going to like this community and this group because, to your point, this is the place where if you show up and say, hey, crazy idea, but what if I completely change my pricing structure and my delivery model and create an app? People are going to be like, yes, and right. Like no one's going to be pushing back on that.
Yeah.
But also that doesn't mean that in order to be in the community, you have to only, kill your billable hour. I mean, we'd love it if you did, but there are people on different stages of where they are with their.
I like the way you frame this because it's like-minded is a word that comes up a lot when people say, I'm a member of a like-minded community. I hate that term, although I understand why we use it as sort of shorthand, but I don't want people who think the same, but I want people who are open to ideas in the same way that I am.
Exactly. I love that.
You want to look for different people because you need different perspectives. You don't want people who are just closed off, which isn't the same as skeptical. Like, I think being skeptical is healthy and good. I'm probably unhealthily skeptical about a lot of things. But you want people who are not just going to be closed-minded and reject things out of hand. So you want people who can help you get new perspectives on things.
Yep. So you need to make sure that your philosophy is aligned with theirs when you're looking for this group, or that there's some kind of cohesion there so that you're not just butting heads every time, because that's no fun.
Yeah, a connection is important too. Are these people who you can stand to have spend an hour with every month or two?
Yeah.
Stephanie, we need to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors, and when we come back, we'll keep talking about business advisory councils. Part of building a successful practice is finding the right payment partner. It's important to work with a processor that understands the complex rules for legal payments. LawPay is the only payment solution that ensures trust account compliance for both credit card and e-check transactions. Trust the only payment solution offered through the ABA Advantage program and all 50 state bars. LawPay. To learn more or to get started, visit lawpay.com/lawyerist today. Support for today's episode comes from Back Office Betties, the only virtual receptionist service exclusively dedicated to small law firms that offers a plan with unlimited calls. Their highly specialized service boasts customized call handling, relentlessly friendly team members, and unmatched quality. The Betties are ready to help you grow your firm, even when you're out of the office. Visit www.backofficebetties.com/lawyerist to try them out for 1 week free. Use promo code PODCAST to receive $150 off your first month. Boost your productivity and save time typing with TextExpander, whether you're in the office or working from home. You can make your own snippets or share and manage snippets for your organization with your team's version, even if your team works from home. You'll reduce errors and increase productivity. TextExpander can save you so much time, it's like getting an extra employee. TextExpander is available for Mac, Windows, iPhone, iPad, and Chrome. And our listeners get 20% off their first year. Visit textexpander.com/podcast to learn more about TextExpander. How would you approach that? Like, put yourself in the shoes of somebody who's like, I know I need some strategic advice. I need somebody I can bounce ideas off of for my business. I need some answers. How do you approach that relationship? It almost feels like asking somebody to do a dance.
Yeah.
Will you be my mastermind partner?
You mean from the lawyer side? Like if I put myself in the lawyer's shoes?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can ask some really broad questions. Like that's what I do anyway, and to get a sense of where people are. Right. So just really simple questions like, what does success for your business look like? What are you trying to achieve here? The way that people answer that question will tell you if they're on a path similar to you or if they're thinking about it similar to you. It's very telling. Like it sounds like a very simple question, but you'd be shocked. You get a ton of different answers, which is really great because people will kind of highlight the vision of what they're trying to create for you. Asking people what their roadblocks are, which is another question I use, allows me to see, what are they struggling with and what kind of help are they really looking for? And are we the right people to provide it? Because sometimes, like I said, I'll just tell people, like, you're looking for this really specific thing. I don't think you're going to get it here. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Not everybody's for everybody, kind of like you said, dancing, dating, whatever analogy you want to use.
Well, and different people are at different levels, right? Like when you're looking for, say, to put together your own mastermind group of peers, you're not necessarily looking for people to play the expert to your novice. You're looking for people who've experienced similar challenges and overcome them and can give you advice based on their experience and can share what they've been challenged by and what they've learned from it to help you gain perspective on your own, which is sort of like that's where the mastermind idea comes from, really, which is different. I think if you want an expert, this is where you have to be willing to pay for it, I think. I think it's pretty hard to approach somebody who has the expertise that you would like to take advantage of and then just say, hey, will you give me that for free?
Yeah.
People do it to us all the time as lawyers, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, you get what you pay for too, right?
Yeah.
And not to say you can't find it free out there, but certainly it's a different level.
I'm just trying to think about how I might approach that because many people who have expertise will share lots of information for free. That's just how the internet works and marketing works these days. But I'm trying to think about how you would get something equivalent to like what we offer in Lab as just sort of a peer-to-peer arrangement, and I'm not sure.
Lab is interesting, to kind of throw in another layer to this, because remember I said that we have the 3 components, and then we really only talked about one, which was coaching.
Right.
So we have coaching, we have content, we have community. So we have, we talked about coaching, content comes up, and that we have all these online courses with templates and worksheets and all the things you need to get you started. And then we have community, which is really kind of what we're talking about now is, and so we do offer that peer support. So I've been in a ton of coaching programs myself because I believe in it, right? If I'm going to be a coach, I better do it. And it's interesting. My perspective on this has changed a little bit. What I get from my coach is very different than what I get in the coaching community. So, for example, I think we've talked about this maybe, but I'm in a program with other people who do what I do. So like if you're a lawyer, you're in a program with other law firm owners, right? And so the feedback and the advice and the perspective I get from my community base is very helpful, but it's different than maybe what the coach is going to give me.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm in with the peer community, we're talking about, hey, I tried this thing and it worked for me, or this really was awesome, or this really failed, which is also, I think, super helpful. And so I'm getting tons of ideas about what people are doing, what they're seeing, how it's working, how they're doing it. And I'll be like, ooh, yeah, I want to try that. When I'm with my coach, it's a much more, for me, when I'm in my coaching, when I'm working with lawyers, for example, if we're in a community, we might talk generally about how cash management works and why it's important. But then when I'm in that one-on-one session, it's like, how much money is in your bank right now? Let's build out your cash management process so that you leave this session with a really clear idea for you and your business and where your holes are and what you need to be thinking about for the next, 30, 60, 90 days. Right. So it's just a different level of help, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. And I think there's that personalized aspect to it. And then there's also the perspective aspect to it of like your peer support group can give you advice based on the one or two challenges similar to the one that you've presented and how they approached it and how they dealt with it. Whereas somebody like in lab, a coach that you hire can give you advice based on a lot of examples because they have a more bird's eye view of the market, the industry that they're advising in, because that's what they do. They talk to lots of people about their different experiences.
Right. I think that's right. And so when you are approaching a program or working with people or trying to build your own, these are all things you should consider is what kind of help in perspective can this person give me? Is that what I need? Do I get more than, just the one-on-one coaching? I used to think a one-on-one coaching is valuable. It's super valuable, but I like both, right? Like there's so much,
Mm-hmm.
I get different things from different places. And so I really like being in a program that really does offer me both. And then you just need to have a connection with someone. Sometimes it just doesn't work, and that's okay too.
Yeah. What can we leave people with that's valuable to help them think about this business advisory council idea for themselves?
Yeah, actually, I want to hit on one other point that is like a little bit of a pet peeve or frustration because we were talking about that you were saying that you want to bring the same level of maybe expertise to the table or if
Mm-hmm.
you're just starting your firm or you have a firm that's been in existence for 10 years and you have 20 team members, those two people are at very different places in their business for sure. And while they have a lot that can be gained from one another, I think there's benefits to both ends to work together.
Mm-hmm.
It may not always be helpful, right? So I agree in that sense. Here's the cautionary tale, though. I get frustrated sometimes when attorneys come to me and say, well, tell me the other practice areas in your community. Now, lab is great because we actually have a ton of consumer-based practices and business-based practices. But there's this weird thing that I think happens that sometimes people think, well, I work with businesses, and so I have nothing to gain from people who only help individuals.
Mm.
You're both running businesses and maybe your marketing has different flavors to it and some things will work for them that don't work for you or vice versa. But be cautious of getting into that mindset because I do think as a business attorney or whatever, a family law attorney, there's things that as a business owner that you can gain from other lawyer business owners.
Yeah. That was the kind of thing that I was assuming while we were talking about who to find. But if I'm having a business council, if I'm trying to put together my own informal business council, I think you're right that the natural temptation would be to go and try and find other small business law firm owners. But that's probably not going to be as helpful as finding small business owners from a diverse array of businesses.
Right. I mean, you may think that, you're only doing referral-based marketing for your small business clients, and you may connect with an estate planner who gives you a new marketing idea that works for them that totally could be applicable to you. You just never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
So I guess my challenge to everyone is, to open your mind a little bit and be willing to listen to other types of businesses, beyond your practice area, that it can be so super helpful.
I think you've actually answered my question of how to go about building your own small business advisory council, which is like go out into the world and look for other small businesses, not necessarily other lawyers, because other lawyers all often come from the same place as you and where they started out as technicians and are trying to learn how to run a business and may not actually be able to give you all that useful advice.
Yeah. And for sure, make sure you're getting different types of, think about your strengths and try to find people who complement them, but don't mirror them. Right. So, one of the reasons, even our team works so well together is that we all bring different things to the table. And we have to look for that too in what we're trying to build if we're building our own business advisory council. So, I have a little expertise in this. What do I need to fill in the gaps? Just like you did for case text. Like, okay, there's knowledge gap here. So think about your strengths and then build it with people who have different strengths.
Very good. Stephanie, thanks so much for talking about business advisory councils with us today. I think if people are building their own, I would love to hear more about that process in our Facebook group for insiders. See you there.
The Lawyers Podcast is produced by Laura Briggs and edited by Christopher Ng.
Are you ready to implement the ideas we discuss here into your practice? Wondering what to do next? Well, here are your first 2 steps. If you haven't read the Small Firm Roadmap yet, grab the first chapter for free right now at lawyerist.com/book.
Next, if you're looking for help beyond the book, then let's chat about whether our coaching communities are right for you. Head to lawyerist.com/community to schedule a 15-minute call with our community manager. The views expressed by the participants are their own and are not endorsed by Legal Talk Network. Nothing said in this podcast is legal advice for you.